Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. And for any new listeners, hello and welcome. This week's episode is just something special. I know I'm on here every week sharing some tips with you guys, sharing some mindset insights from experiences that either I or my guests have went through that we kind of hope you can relate to and give you some tools that you can try in your everyday life. And I know especially, since I've been back in the past couple months, that a lot of what I've been talking about here has been definitely mindset focus and ways of thinking. And when it comes to mindset, I know the guests I've had on have been phenomenal, but this guest I'm about to share with you, her mindset is just on another level. Nicole, for anybody of you who don't know her, she is just an exceptional human being. In today's episode, we talk about her journey with cancer, getting diagnosed, that whole process, and getting the information, and then she kind of gives us a bit of an insight into where she's at currently with her treatment and her diagnosis. I just wanted to give you guys that heads up because I know the topic of cancer can be, tough for some people listening, depending on what's going on in their own life. So I just wanted to give you guys that heads up before going into the episode. But I can't stress enough that Nicole's mindset and her story is just one that is so beautiful and full of strength and joy and comedy and just downright resilience. I will stop rambling and taking up Nicole's time here and just leave it with her. And I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you guys have any insights, anything you would like to share, please comment down below. Reach out to Nicole or I directly. We would love to hear from you. Enjoy. Bye. Hello and welcome to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. If you are someone who is looking to take power back into your life and be in control of your destiny, then this is for you. This podcast was created to empower others by sharing the tools that have truly transformed my life. So sit back, relax, and let's start rewriting your story today. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. For those who have joined on YouTube, I'm sure you will see that we have a wonderful guest with us this week. And I know I could give her an intro here, but I'm sure she's best to describe who she is. So Nicole, could you give everybody a little introduction and say hello?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Nicole, and Amy and I have known each other for a few years now, and she just thought that it'd be really cool to bring me on to talk about my story, which obviously we'll delve into. But I'm 29 now, but I was diagnosed when I was 28 with inflammatory breast cancer, and I just really want to share my story with everyone and get it out there.
Thanks, dude. And yeah, it's a big deal for me to get Nicole on here. I know you guys hear me preach about it in my other episodes, just about mindset and being positive. And I think in one of my previous episodes, I kind of talk about how life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And it's what you do with what life's thrown your way. And from Nicole and I were chatting for about an hour before we started recording and just catching up and going over bits about her story that I hadn't heard yet. And I'm just so excited to have her on here for you guys to not only just get awareness about this sort of thing, but to also learn the kind of tips that Nicole kind of shares about her mindset that you can bring into your daily life, no matter what kind of shit life throws your way. Think like Nicole. That's my homework for you for this week. And I know Nicole has some for you later. And I never really give homework at the start of the episode, but I want you to just note something from her mindset that you're like, yeah, I should think like that. Whether it's you're going through an illness yourself, or you have a condition, or it's just a stress, or there's something in your life, some block that you've got. I really want you to try to pick up something that you've learned from Nicole and embody that in your daily life. Now, Nicole did say that we've known each other for a chunk of years now, and that's totally true. We actually met in university. And as a few people may know from listening to some of my other podcasts, I was in university for like not even a term. But in the time that I was there, this wonderful human came into my life, and we were like inseparable pretty much right away. It was like, I'm pretty sure people just assumed that we also knew each other before uni. We're like, nope. Like no, everywhere Nicole went, Amy was there. I'd even hang out in the laundry with her while she was doing her laundry. Like we were inseparable. Like that's just how it went. For like the couple months I was there. But
so true.
Like any good friends, you catch up every chunk of years or so. It's like, hey, how you doing? And Nicole had popped up in my social media a good few months back, and there was a comment about her diagnosis. And the comment, I remember being kind of long, and I was reading through everything on the post, and she was saying about how she really wants to share her journey and be open and transparent with it to help other people. And I just thought, especially now, what better way to share her story and help her spread that message than get her on here to talk to you guys. So I guess I'll stop rambling, and Nicole, we'll get into your journey. So one of the things I know you'd mentioned in that post that I was reading was that you had pain, like it didn't necessarily come across in the normal way that we're told, and I'm using normal here with air quotes for those who aren't watching online. Like you didn't find a lump, it was more like you had pain or issues. Can you kind of talk us through?
So last May I noticed pain like above my left breast, and I was like, this is a bit strange. And then I realized that it was like my nipple was leaking, and it was really odd. I was like, okay, what is this? And researched everything, because over here at this point all the doctors were closed. They were just taking phone call referrals, really. So I had made sure to research everything about what I thought was happening to me, and I found out that it was probably mastitis. So mastitis is commonly found in women who are breastfeeding. Now, I don't have kids, I've never been pregnant, so the chances of me breastfeeding were 0. But it's not uncommon. I say uncommon. It is still possible to have it outside of breastfeeding, and men can also have it as well. But one thing it is a huge thing of is a symptom of inflammatory breast cancer. So I was put on antibiotics for 2 weeks and was told, like, if it is an infection, it won't clear up. But my infection cleared up, the redness went away, the swelling went away, and the pain went away as well.
So you're like, it must have been mastitis.
So that was totally fine. I had another phone call conversation with the GP, and he was happy enough to leave things how they were. He was like, if there's any other problems, like, please get back in touch. And that was fine. So I was sitting on a Sunday afternoon, and I just washed my hair, and just above my ear I like put my hand up, and I was like, oh my word, what is that? And there's this like big patch of my hair missing, and I just went into like freak out mode, and I ran up the stairs to my husband, and I was like and I couldn't talk. I was so emotional. I was like and I forgot to breathe running up the stairs, and we have 2 flights to get up as well, so I was like and then he was like, what's wrong? And I couldn't speak. I'm just trying to show him, but I had plural I had past tense. Oh my days. Well done, Nicole. Loads of hair, like it was nearly down to my bottom. It was thick, it was luscious.
Like, you think anyone looking online thinks my hair is pretty thick? Like, Nicole had a luscious lock. Like, and it was so much volume, and like, so I'm like trying to like find this, and
he was like, yeah, there's a bald patch. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, take a picture of it, like show me, because of where it was really hard to like twist my head to see in the mirror. So now I phoned the GP back on the Monday, and I was like, my hair's coming out. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, could the antibiotics have caused this? He's like, no, I wouldn't think so. So he gave me solutions and stuff to try on my hair. It didn't really work, didn't really do anything. Then I started to lose up the back of my hair. It was like thinning. I started to lose some more on the other side around my ear. I lost part here as well. It wasn't really noticeable, but I noticed it.
Yeah.
And I knew at this point, I was like, something's not right. And it was basically my body trying to tell me there's something going on in here and you need to start listening. And it knew by affecting my hair that I would listen, because if you affect anything else, like I'm just going to go up and go on with it. So I started to get a lot of pain. So this was the end of May, start of June, with losing my hair, which I kept really quiet, didn't really tell anyone about it, because I was like, it's your appearance. And I was like, no, I can't be public about this. And I went public about it on my social media in August, and had a lot of people say, oh, try lavender, try different things and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, this is helpful.
And if people are reaching out with try this, try that, it must be like, oh, I'm not the only one. Like,
it did.
They've tried it too. Like,
it made you think, okay, well, other people have tried this. And, then I thought, maybe this will actually help someone else too. And I'll still have people who like pop up on that post and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear this, or I've just started losing my hair. And I was like, okay, well, this is obviously help people. This is great. So in between all this, the pain has started to come back. So the pain started like under my arm, and it would come down my arm. So it wasn't really like my breast as a whole. It was the area of my breast. And I started to feel really tired. And then I would get quite a lot of nausea, and I would just be like a balloon. I was like, this is really strange. So I phoned the GP back, and they said, look, we can get you an emergency appointment today to come in and have someone look at it. And I was like, yeah, okay, no problem, that's fine. So I went down and I saw the GP. Now, I didn't have like a lump. They refer to it as a hard stone lump. So she's feeling, and she's like, I don't really feel anything, but there is a little bit of the breast that feels more firm. And I was like, okay. She's like, but we'll refer you up to the breast clinic. She's like, honestly, I don't think it's anything to worry about. But because you had the mastitis in May, it's better to get everything checked out. And I was like, yeah, no problem. That's fine. Okay.
That's a great doctor. Like a really great doctor. So many people would just be like,
she would be
put your arm,
about,
did you sleep on it funny? Like,
she was around about our age too. So she was like, hormones and changes and things like that can happen, so start to get a little bit older. And I was like, okay. And that was fine. So it took about 3 weeks for the from that initial appointment until my next one, and it was the start of September. And I went up to the breast clinic, which is in my local hospital, and the receptionist sent me to the wrong place, which actually then takes you into one of the cancer units in the hospital. So then I'm completely past myself, because I'm like, oh my days, like, where am I? Anyway, finally make it back to where I'm supposed to be. I'm in such a tears. I'm like, I can't breathe. I wanted to take my mask off so I could actually get like a breath in. Sat on the seat. As soon as I sat on the seat, they called my name, and I was like, still can't breathe. I've got my spine. Just in a complete and utter tears. And I went in, and they're like, okay, can you take your clothes off? And I was like, yes. So I stood there and had my clothes off, and I just started breathing. I was like, I can actually breathe now. And they're like, okay, bring me in 3. And there was a male doctor, and a female nurse. And I started explaining, how I had the pain. And as soon as I mentioned the word pain, the nurse said, oh, I'll give you a leaflet about breast pain, and you'll need to go to your local like health store and pick up some oils to rub on, and that'll help the pain. And I was like, okay. And the doctor was like, yeah, like, pain isn't cancer. And I was like, okay. And as I was lying there, like, my brain was going overtime, because there was a massive part of me knew that I wasn't there to be tested for cancer, but there was also a small part of me was like, oh, you could have cancer.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really important to know that this is a breast clinic where people are diagnosed with cancer. It's not just a clinic where you're like, oh, here, get your bloods done, get this done. Like, it's very much breast cancer.
Centered
That's
and
what it's
around
that's what it's designed for. So that was fine. He said, oh, you're only 28, you can't have a mammogram. And I was like, correct, I am only 28. And I honestly felt like I was going to be sent home without further tests being done.
Crazy to think that they say you can't have a test that should be important because of your age.
So the reason for that is not to do necessarily with your age, it's actually to do with your breast tissue. So the older you are, the less dense your breast tissue becomes. And especially if you breastfed and were pregnant, again, that changes the density of the tissue. And then it allows the mammogram to actually read through your tissue. So a lot of women who are maybe younger have gone for mammogram tests. Mine in particular didn't really show up the extent of the cancer that was in there. So I was then referred for an MRI. But I'm like going off track a little bit.
Cool, you're all good.
So I was like, I'm not going to get scanned. And he was like, no, we'll offer you an ultrasound today. So that was okay. I went round to have my ultrasound, and they were like, we need to do FNAs. Now, again, I had researched. So I knew an FNA was a fine needle aspiration, where they were basically going to go in and take like a mini sample. And the person who was doing it was like, again, it's not hard stone lump. She's like, I don't want to say for certain, but like, I don't think it's not a cancerous lump I'm in. She was like, I know, like, this woman tests cancer lumps like every day. That is her job. And she's like, it doesn't feel like it. So anyway,
which must have felt reassuring at the time, where you're like, okay, then maybe it's not cancer. Like,
and she was like, I'm going to do everything. So after I had my FNA, she was like, okay, I'm going to do like bigger biopsies. She's like, because I don't want you to have to come back up here for more tests and go through this ordeal again.
That's great.
And I was like, okay, thank you. So they thought it was just like polyps or block cysts, but they wanted to test everything just to make sure, or they thought it was maybe like an infection or an infection waiting to come out. So I went back into the doctor, and he just started word vomiting about his gallbladder and how, he was a surgeon, and, it looked really, really bad, and that his culture is to eat spicy foods, and he was told, you can't eat spicy foods anymore, and this was like a real big thing. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, why is this man still talking? Like, please, like, what has this got to do with me?
He wasn't telling you to stop eating spicy foods. He was just talking about himself.
He was talking about how he had to stop eating spicy foods because of his gallbladder. And I was like, what? So he kept going, and I sort of said to him, I was like, are we done here? Because I didn't know where we were going with this. Like, what relevance did this have
to you?
To me? Like, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm just basically telling you that I had to wait 13 weeks for my results for my gallbladder, but you only have to wait 4 days. I was like, could you not have just told me I'll ring you in 4 days? So I thought that was it. Okay, I put my number down on the page that he wanted. And then he said to me, as I'm about to stand up to leave, he goes, I'll ring you in 4 days. But if there's any problems or it's bad news, it'll be the big boss man who'll ring you. I was like, okay, thanks so much. Talk to you on Monday. Bye. I left. And I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
You kind of leave and you're like, what?
Did that just happen?
Yeah, so my husband and I had our birthday weekend in March cancelled, and then we had booked it for this weekend in September. So we were heading down to Derry, and I was really looking forward to it. This was great. On the Monday, we were walking around. This is when shops were still open in Northern Ireland. We were walking around, and I had my phone in my hand the whole day, and I just kept like looking at it and just like walking and then like picking it up and just waiting for this phone to ring. Now, I also hadn't told Sean that my phone was going to ring with the results. I said that it could take up to a week because I didn't want him to be worrying. I wanted him to enjoy the weekend. Yeah.
Typical Nicole, making sure everybody else's feelings are okay. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, because I knew if he was worrying, then that would just kind of like affect everything about the weekend, and I didn't want that at all. So the phone rang about 2:15 whenever I sat in my car and turned my ignition on, and I was like, great timing, good job. And it was not the doctor who I'd been with on the Thursday. It was said big boss man, and he was really soft spoken, really gentle, and he just said to me, were you waiting on a phone call? And I was like, yes, I was. He's like, okay, I have the results of your biopsies, but I do need you to come in for more tests. And I was like, okay. And he was like, can you come in on Friday? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And I hung up the phone. And I just looked at my husband and I burst into tears. And I knew at this point that I had cancer. And then that wait from Monday to Friday was the longest week ever. So Friday finally came round and we headed up. It was Friday afternoon, and I had so many nervous runs to the toilet. I was like, I can't even do a nervous poo. Like there's like I don't even need to poo. And I was like, oh my word. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to pee. And you know the way your body just is like thinking of things to do because you're so nervous.
Yeah, it's your nerves. They have a physical response in your body. Your emotions take over.
I was like, stop. I was like, okay, ready to go. And then Sean started putting his shoes on. He wasn't ready to go. And I was like, well, now I have to go to the toilet again. So anyway, finally left the house, drove up to the hospital, and Sean was allowed to come into this appointment with me. Again, because of COVID and restrictions and stuff like that, there's only some appointments are allowed.
Visitors
or family with you. So we're sitting waiting, and this man walks in with his partner and starts causing a bit of a ruckus about wearing a face shield and a mask, and starts arguing with the nurse about how many people are in the waiting room. And I'm sitting there and I am like wetting myself laughing because he reminded me of Meet the Fockers, you know, the dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like literally killing myself, like shaking because I can't physically laugh out loud because everyone will look at me. And Sean's like, what are you laughing at? And then when I told him, he started laughing too. So even in this really like horrible moment, we were just creating humor. So we finally get called in and we're sat down, and he put his hands like this, the doctor, and he came over the desk, and I just remember it so vividly, and he was like, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you have breast cancer. And I just went into this ramble about how, you know, why were so many people convinced that I wouldn't have it, and the doctors and the da-da-da-da. And he was like, I understand. He's like, we were all extremely shocked whenever we got your results back, and they said that you had breast cancer. A man of very, very few words. And then he was like, okay, you're going to go, and we need to have more tests done. He's like, today we are going to give you a mammogram just to see if anything shows up on there, but just to make sure. But if not, I will need to refer you for an MRI.
When you say the man of few words, like I always wonder, like you see it in movies and you hear about it sometimes from people firsthand, like yourself. Like I'm sure it's a hard message to deliver to anybody, like any of that stuff. Like, how did you feel he did? Like, is that a weird question?
I'll score you out of 10. So
yeah, like I think I know, you know what I mean, but yeah,
I do. No, I do know what you mean. And I'd imagine in that job you have to very much separate your emotions from it, and he might have to tell like 5 women or more, I don't know how many he sees in a day, people have to tell them in a day, and he watches their family, and like he's probably thinking, oh, I have a wife at home, and if that was my, you can't go into that. You really do have to separate yourself from it. And I think he did really well. Again, I think just his natural persona and his how he delivers words was done well. And for me, a lot of women who I've met along this journey want all the answers there and then. They want all the information. Whereas this man gave me very direct, precise information, and there was no wishy-washy that I had with the initial doctor who I had been with the first time. And I really, really appreciated that, and that worked for me. So then that day I went round for the mammogram, and like I just feel like I cried from start to finish. So I do. He told me, I don't even know why I'm laughing, but that's how it was. And then this man who looked like the dad from Meet the Fockers kept like and was like really dramatic, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, don't laugh, whatever you do, don't laugh.
I have to say, for anybody who's watching on Spotify or Apple, whatever, you really need to get over to YouTube and just see Nicole's mannerisms.
Yes,
she's a joy to watch. She adds more of a dramatic effect. You definitely see that we both went to university for drama. But yes, he was hiding behind the book.
So he's hiding behind his book, and all the seats are marked out, and don't sit here, and you can't sit here and stuff. So it's all socially distant. And this woman came over and sat like near him, but still well within the restrictions. And he just like, if he'd had long hair, it would have been a proper hair flick, and so dramatic. And I was like, no, don't do anything. Don't even make eye contact with anyone else in this room. And then the nurses were really lovely. They obviously just knew that I'd been told, you have cancer. So they kept coming over and were like, we'll get you in really, really soon. And they wanted to do another biopsy under my arm. And they were like, we'll get you in, don't worry, we'll do this and everything. And I could see him getting really annoyed because people kept coming to me. And we're like, why is she getting all the attention? And then he would keep being more dramatic within his movements. And maybe I was just reading into it way too much, but that's what it felt like. So I was taken round for the mammogram and then the biopsies, and it's quite a long process. But again, everyone I met along that journey was so lovely, and all they wanted to know was, how did I find it? At 20 years old, how did I know I have breast cancer? And there was a nurse in with me while we were waiting on the sonographer to come in to do the ultrasound again for the biopsies. And she was like, I'm 28. She'd taken my details on my birth date. She's like, we're the same age. She's like, I know I see women coming in here with breast cancer, but it's normally 50s, 60s, but you're the same age as me. And you could see her really trying to hold her emotions back. And I think it really hit home for her that this is a huge possibility that younger women can be diagnosed with breast cancer. And they took the biopsy under my arm. That's a test for my lymph nodes. And there was just like a real somber feeling in the room. It was really strange. The chit chat that had initially been there was gone. And people were affected by this. It was really strange. And I remember coming out of that appointment, and then we had to go back and see the breast care nurse, and she gave us more information. And that was my husband again. And he's like waving through the window. Sorry. So we went back into the breast care nurse for the end of the day. So, and she gave us more information and the important stuff, the letters for surgery, and just in case they decided that they were going to go down that route first. And then we went to the car, and this is the first opportunity that Sean and I got to actually speak to each other.
Wow.
Like, although he was there with me, we didn't have a chance to actually sit down and be like, okay, I've just been diagnosed. There was none of that. So we had arrived for about 1, and we were coming out of there about 4:30. And this is the first time that we, as the couple, were now being able to talk about the fact that I'd just been diagnosed. And that, when I think about that, I'd never thought about that before, but now when I do, I'm like, wow, that was tough.
Yeah,
that was really tough. And then we're like, okay, well, what do we do now? Like, we need to tell people. And I knew that I needed to tell like my parents and family and stuff straight away, or I wouldn't have been able to, because I'd went home and thought about it. So as I started to tell people, I started to really separate myself from my emotions towards it. And I feel like this is where it's really, really helped me in terms of like my journey and my recovery process. But after seeing my mom, I'm laughing because it's really, really funny. But my mum and my sister had been going to pick up something, and they were sitting, my dad actually had to tell them, and they were sitting with like pure panda eyes, really, really emotional. And I was like, oh, I guess my dad has told you that. And yeah, I think watching them and their reaction was like a real eye-opener for me, because now I was like, okay, I have this. There's nothing anyone can do. There's nothing I can do to change this. This is just what it is. I'm going to start treatment. I'll have surgery, and the other steps along the way. But no matter what you say, it's not going to change it. And you can either bow down to it, or you can get up and get on with it. And I was like, I'm just going to get up and get on with this. And then
hold on, before you jump on there, Nicole, how does someone get that kind of mindset? Because there's going to be people listening here who'd be like, whoa, that conversation, that whatever. And you're like, yeah, but it's just part of my story. So come on, what's next? Like, how do you, that part?
I don't know. I guess I've always been a pretty positive person. And there's certain things in life that mold you and shape you, and it's how you take that on board. And I don't really know how I got to this. The previous year I had been off work for work-related stress, and it really got to me, and to the point where I really struggled mentally. I struggled to go to bed. I struggled to want to do things, and I was in a really dark place, and it was horrible. It was hard, and I never want to have to be in that position again. But coming out of it, I knew that I didn't want to ever go back there. So I feel like that helped me. But I also had rapid transformational therapy, RTT, and it was focused on going back to work and the stress and the anxiety and the worry and all of those things there that I had associated with work. Nothing to do with cancer, because I hadn't been diagnosed at this point. So I'd imagine there's a massive part of it that has helped me with this positive mindset and just be me. And that's just it. And I think it's so important too to note that just because someone has a cancer diagnosis, it doesn't change them as a person. Just because someone loses their hair or their eyelashes fall out or their eyebrows fall out, like, that doesn't make them any less
of a human.
them. And I feel like that's really, really important, because I know that the people will message me and say, oh, I don't want to bother you, or if you're too tired and stuff like that. And I know they don't mean it.
That one.
I know they don't mean it in how it comes across to you as a person.
Yeah.
But just be
Normal.
you with them. Like, that's it. Just be normal.
And I'd say that goes for anybody, regardless, you know, whether it's a cancer diagnosis, whether it's someone that's got mental health problems, whether it's someone's got heart condition, whatever. And I get that so many people are like, oh, like, I don't want to worry because you got so much stuff going on. And then when, I guess, before COVID times, when you could be together, it's like, oh, but can we do this activity? Are they well enough to do this? Or like, let us decide. Like, don't just be normal. And we'll tell you if we can or can't.
Definitely. And just going off on that, Amy, I think it's really important to note that on the Friday night, whenever Sean and I went to bed, he asked me a question. I don't know what that question was, and I started to cry. And he was like, what's wrong? And I said, I don't want to be sick. And he was like, no, like, it's okay if you're sick. And I was like, no, I don't want to be sick. And that was my biggest fear, was being sick. And I guess that has a few meanings to it. And one of those meanings was, the main reason was that I didn't want to have my head down a toilet book and my ring up all the time. That's what I meant by that. But in my head, something clicked, and I had cancer. I say had, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But I wasn't sick. Yes, my hair fell out. Well, I wasn't sick. I had side effects from the chemotherapy that made my hair fall out. They made me sick. They made my face turn red. They made me swell up like a balloon. But I wasn't sick. And that's what I wanted. Was I didn't want people to be like, oh, Nicole's sick. Oh, Nicole's unwell. Because I wasn't. Mentally, I felt amazing. Physically, okay, good days and bad days.
Yeah.
But I felt really good. And there's two things I had inside me. One was the cancer, and the other is the PICC line, and both of them won't be there for much longer. But I always addressed.
You had one more amazing thing inside you too, which was an incredible mindset.
Oh, thank you. I always say, got me now. So one thing I always refer to is the cancer, and you'll hear people and they'll say my, but I don't refer to it as mine. I was like, it doesn't belong inside me. It's not a part of me. You know, we don't have an emotional connection. We're not going to be friends. We're not going to go out for dinner. Like, it's there and it shouldn't be there, and that's just it. And I think if you can completely emotionally and mentally separate those two things, and it is hard to do, but by using those phrases, it is a nothing, it is a nobody, and that really has helped me mentally. And one thing I imagined doing was putting the cancer cells into a cage in a prison, and they were little green gremlins, and they were just confined in this cage. And now they're gone, because after my surgery, I had no evidence of residual disease, and also of the 22 lymph nodes I had removed, none of them had cancer in them anymore, which is amazing. So now I can say I had rather than I have. So it's very much about word choices and how we use those words, because we don't actually realize that the words we're saying are actually really mentally affecting how we do things. And
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. it's all about those word choices and using them to help us, I guess.
Yeah. And that goes for all walks of your life. I feel like,
yeah, that's for anything.
If you tell yourself, oh, I'm so stupid, blah, 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 like negative self-talk is so dangerous. It's ridiculously dangerous. And like, you know, people say, oh, don't say bad things about people. You know, if you've nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And a lot of people do take that on board when it comes to other people, but when it comes to yourself.
But it's so much for yourself, so much.
And
it really affects.
I know I'll definitely do another episode about like the power of words, and who knows, I might even bring Nicole back for that if you want to hear more of her input. But I do have that planned, and I'll go into it more in that episode. I don't want to take any attention here from Nicole, but you can, like, I genuinely feel that your mindset can heal you. The words that you use can definitely have a physical impact. And like you hear what Nicole's saying here, like she's someone that's lived through this, experienced it, and you say it so beautifully. Like I've actually just been writing down things that you've said because they've touched me, and I'm like, this just really speaks to me. And the fact that you've lived this to the point that you're like, this is something that's a good thing to try. And that's something that I want you guys to try. Like, you don't have to go through this shit to learn the power of words. You don't have to go through the crap, because Nicole's giving you that great nugget of information right now. And that's why this podcast exists. We don't want you guys to go through the shit that we've had to go through to learn what life gifts that you can, to help get you out of those dark paths, to help get you out of the shitty mindsets. We're here to try to gift that to you already so you can start course correcting. So I'd implore you guys as well, maybe an added homework too. I'm giving homework all over the show this week, but write down, you know, the power of words, that negative self-talk, how you can change that, you know, the things in your life that don't serve you. You're like, no, I don't connect with this. It's not something I identify with. Chuck it to the curb. Be like, okay, like Nicole said, put it in its little jail. Call it the that. It's not mine. It doesn't belong to you. Like, that's something that the world's put on you. Somebody else has put on you. You know, if you get bullied and people call you a certain thing and you've now identified with that, did you give yourself that title? Hell no. Did somebody else give you it? Is that something you really identify with? Then kick it to the curb. Like, it works.
And once you start those small steps, they have such an amazing effects, and those effects will then start happening quite quickly, and you'll realize, whoa, I referred to myself as that so much, or I did this. And you know, it is, our minds are incredible, and we don't even know how to use them completely, which is insane. But once we start to delve into those little pockets of information and using those words and terminology, and it doesn't even have to be fancy, it is literally you finding what your inner self is, and you don't have to stand in front of a mirror to do it, or mirror, depending on where you're from. You have to stand there and be like, I am amazing. You know, you can internally do that by the word choices that you use. And if you have to stand in front of a mirror, do that. If that's how it works for you, then do it. For some people, they're like, I don't like doing this. There's so many other ways out there to do it. So many other ways. But for me, mindset has been a huge part of my journey to getting back the full me. And I know that I've gone through so much, and I could probably talk for about 3 podcasts about my journey, but like, it has been an absolute roller coaster. And one thing they told me whenever I had my meeting with the breast care nurse was about IVF treatment. Being 20 years old, we don't have any kids. Something we talked about. I also have polycystic ovaries, so it's harder to have kids on that. Some people can and don't even realize that they have polycystic ovaries. For me, I very much know that I have them, and it's not a pleasant thing, but it was just another kind of hurdle that we would overcome whenever we got there. So I was referred to the fertility clinic, and they basically were like, yes, we can offer you IVF even though you have polycystic ovaries. And everything was so positive, given that we had had so much negative information from the cancer diagnosis, from finding out that it was already in my lymph nodes, to then we were going to have chemo first because the 2 tumors were too big. We had to have those shrunk. I then was going to have a mastectomy and lose my boob, and everything was just like, whoa, and just like snowballing downhill, and the snowball of bad things was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And you're juggling IVF in the middle of all this?
Yeah, so we'd had our first Ivf appointment to try and like work out what was going to happen. So we had all our bloods done, we had all the information given to us, all the forms, everything ready to go, and we had to talk about what way we wanted to go about getting the eggs. So we want to make embryos, and there was a lot of talking had to go on through this whole process. Had a lot of communication, and I think if you are on a journey like this, like, and you do have a partner, be as open as you can with them, and communicate with them, because if you start to keep things to yourself or shut things off from them, it's going to be harder to let them in down the line, and they can't help you. So for Sean and I, it was talking, and there was days where we maybe didn't want to talk, but we knew that we had to. And it's hard because whenever you have a diagnosis of any illness, it almost consumes everything. And every conversation you have is about that. And maybe you're watching a TV program and everything is about that, or adverts on TV, and it is just around you. And that was difficult to take on board as well. So sorry, going back to the IVF. So we'd had this amazing positive news. I was given tablets to start, and they were like, okay, come back up next week, and we'll be able to start the injections and everything. So in between all of this, I then had been sent to meet my oncologist, and she basically said to me, we don't have time to continue with IVF. Oh, I disappeared.
No, you disappeared. Oh, you're back.
I'm back. And I was like, sorry, we don't have time to continue with everything. And she's like, yeah, we you just don't, you need to start your chemotherapy straight away. And I was like, oh, okay. How soon are we talking? She was like, next week. And as if we been to the IVF clinic, she was like, no, you don't have time. Unless they can have it done by next week, you don't have time. So they were like, no, we physically don't have enough time to do this. And for me, this is the hardest part of my journey, because I felt that my babies, even though we hadn't even collected eggs yet, were being ripped away from me. That we didn't even get to the point where I was injecting myself daily. And I know for many women out there that an IVF journey is a massive thing. And please, if you are going through this journey, like, open up and talk about it, like, help other women out. And I was terrified to go on. I was more terrified to go on the IVF journey than I was to go through chemotherapy.
Wow.
Just going to put that out there, yeah. Because it wasn't just my life, it was Sean's life and the possibility of a baby as well at the end of it. There's so many more other factors involved. And
I guess, like you said, like, the cancer was a zapped in its wee box, but the IVF's so personal.
It's a baby, it's a life, and it's something that we want. So yeah, it definitely makes a massive difference. And broke my heart, and I know that it hurt Sean as well, and it was a hard one to swallow, a really hard one to swallow. And then I was due to start my chemotherapy the next week. When I finally got started with it, I remember the nurse putting it in through my PICC line, and I started crying. So I did, and I wasn't crying because I don't really know why. I feel like this was, for me, every step was about the next part in recovery, the next part in getting rid of the cancer. And this was such a huge moment, getting that first chemo put in through me. But then there's also a massive thing too, like I was going to lose my hair. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll know how much Amy plays with her hair. I was exactly the same.
You don't even notice I do.
I would be sitting like playing with my hair and twiddling it and everything. And I was going to lose this. And I felt for me that my hair was very much me. Like my hair was a huge part of my life. And I quickly then realized that my hair didn't define me. So I'll still talk to people, and as I'm talking to them in my head, I still have hair. Even though I don't, like, very clearly I don't have hair. But yeah, I would imagine that I still had it. And then I started to realize actually hair doesn't define me as a person. It's not a big deal, and it's okay to still look like an egg. And yeah, I don't know, it was just such a strange moment getting that first chemo put through me, and you don't feel anything.
Yeah.
So you don't.
I guess emotionally though you do, like you say, like everything was leading up to this point.
It's so hard to explain it. It really is. And for, the next time I went, then like it was fine because I knew what to expect.
Yeah.
All of that.
I do want to jump back into the hair part because I feel like that's such a pivotal thing that you just said, and I don't want to skip past that. And I think for anybody listening, whatever journey you're going through, whether it's cancer and chemo, whether it's issues with other parts of your body, and even mentally losing part of yourself, like Nicole was saying about her hair being so much a part of our identity. And this is something that Nicole and I've also talked about before hitting record, was that you've the power to choose what you identify with. You've the power to choose how you feel about things, and you've the power to change how you feel about things. Like as Nicole said, her hair is a big part of her life. Was there anything, like you say, it just kind of clicked with you? Was there anything you feel like went to the build up, or was it just your logical mind being like, you were so ready, you knew you were going to lose it? Like how did you change from identifying with it to then...
I think I cried every tear I had over it, and it didn't matter what I was going to do, my hair was going to come out. There's one particular drug within the chemo I first started on that basically gets rid of your hair, and that's just it. So yeah, I sort of just cried every tear I had. I knew I couldn't do anything about it. I watched my hair fall out. One thing I signed up to recently was TikTok, and on my TikTok there's actually a video of the progression that my hair took. And I would brush it and it would just be in handfuls.
Yeah.
I'd be in the shower and it would just be in handfuls. Now again, I had so much hair, so I had so much to lose, and I refused to shave it because why should I let cancer take it that way? I didn't want to shave my head. If it was coming out, I knew that, but I wanted to have as long with it as I could. And I didn't go completely bald. I had like a few little strands and stuff like that there, but it's just a progression, and you kind of like, I still look at pictures of myself and I'm like, oh, look at my hair in that picture, I love how my hair is in that picture. Or I could be watching TV show and I'll see someone with like a really nice hairstyle. I'm like, oh, I want to try that with my hair. And then I remember, oh wait, I don't have any hair. And it did take me a while to get used to looking at myself in the mirror. And then yeah, I just kind of was like, okay, this is fine. But I thought that I would be the kind of person who would need to wear a wig every day. Yeah. And I don't. That's it. I've worn it once. My husband has probably tried it on more times than I have, to be honest.
And that also goes for like anybody on there who feels like they do want to wear wigs or hair coverings or anything like that. you go for it, you do what's right for you. But
Yeah,
I loved
exactly.
hearing your outlook on it, Nicole, where it was like, I'm not going to hide this. I want to just embrace
Yeah.
it and let it be. Like, and from your journey, and you've mentioned it a couple of times throughout the episode, that your hair wasn't the only thing that has physically been removed or lost from your body. You did have your breast removed very recently. You put up a beautiful
Yes, 3
post.
weeks to get 3 weeks today.
Wow. I remember your lovely post about your hotel stay. Oh, hospital. This hotel's
Yeah.
I mean, my hospital. And again,
Yeah.
that goes to say a lot about Nicole's personality and outlook on this. But what was that process like for you? Was that something you could mentally prepare for, or was it just something that you kind of knew was going to happen regardless?
So initially, a lot of women, on my second appointment with my doctor, he said we're going to go with a mastectomy. But there is that process that some women get to go through, and that's being reduced to lumpectomy. So I thought that could be a possibility. If I had chemo first, that the size of my tumors would then shrink and they would be removed by lumpectomy. But the particular type of cancer that I had was inflammatory, which meant that my skin was affected and there was an orange peel to it and the redness. So it had to go to ensure that reoccurrence didn't happen. And the only way to get rid of that is to have a mastectomy with a complete axillary no clearance, which meant that not only was I having my breast removed, I was having it right round into my side where my lymph nodes would then be removed too. And I showed Amy earlier, and it goes right round under my arm, and it starts where your like cleavage would start too. So it's quite large. But yeah, when I was initially told that I was going to lose it, I was in shock. And I remember my dad telling my dad, and my dad was like, this is life-changing physical appearance. So it's like, this is a life-changing surgery and it's really going to change you and stuff. And I was like, I know that, but it doesn't have to change me as a person. And it doesn't matter what we do in life. Like, we could be the most confident person within ourselves, and I think it's really important to say within ourselves, and you can still put on an outfit and be like, oh, this isn't right, this isn't sitting right, I don't feel good in this. Like, that goes for everybody. And once I started to take that into consideration, I realized that there's going to be days, no matter what I do in life, that I'm going to put a top on and be like, no, this doesn't look right, or no, my boobs aren't sitting right in this, like whether I have one boob or whether I have two boobs. And it was just about those little small realizations that then helped me get to this point. And I also had 6 months. So I was diagnosed in September, the middle of September, and I had chemo. And once my chemo finished, I had 4 weeks to recover. And then I had my surgery, which was on the 4th of March. So I had all of this time to think about everything and how I can make this work for me. But yeah, it's just one of those. It's just another part of the journey. And I knew that by having my breast removed, that this was the next step in my road to recovery and my road to being the best version of me, and be done with it. And I still have one. For now, I still have one, and I can be a one-tit wonder, and that's just it. It was being told it was hard. Do not get me wrong, it was hard, and it broke my heart. I was like, oh. And that initial doctor said to me, this is some of the hardest news we have to deliver to a woman, is telling them that they're going to lose their breast. And this is coming from a man.
Yeah.
Like, a man, he understands, he gets it, he knows that what he's delivering is not pleasant. But honestly, the surgery part was so much easier than the chemotherapy part. The surgery part was easy. I was entertainment on the wards. The woman on there loved me. I was sick after surgery and they had given me a bedpan in case I needed to be sick again. And I was putting on my head as if I was a cowboy hat, if it was cowboy hat, and then I was like walking around the ward being like just entertainment, just providing the laughs. And like there was a woman on there and she had bowel cancer, and her doctor was basically trying to tell her that her prognosis wasn't good. And when I was leaving the ward, she personally thanked me because I had provided her with this entertainment, and she said it just really lifted her mood and really lifted her spirits and stuff. And that's all I want to do, is know that yes, we can be in the darkest places in our life, but there's always light, and it's about looking for that. You don't have to go deeper to search for it. And sometimes it's right in front of you and you don't even realize.
Yeah.
But it is there, and it's finding it. And once you find it, like, just go for it. And that's it. But for this woman in particular, she was like, your story and your energy and everything about you is incredible. And it has made me really think a lot about how I say and do things.
And how it affects not only you, but other people.
Yeah. And I didn't even realize that. And
Nicole, you do.
That's all I want. That's all I want, is that my story could help someone. And I think it's so important to realize my age, like 28 years old. And I know that there are women who have been younger than I, have been diagnosed with breast cancer, or older than I, but just listen to what your body is telling you. And if something is not right, you know your body.
Yeah.
And you just you do what you've got to do. And if it's nothing, amazing, that's great. But if it's something, at least you've made that step to get it checked out.
Yeah. And I want to add to that is, your body, especially when it comes to pain. Us as humans, we're like, oh, I feel pain, I'll pop a painkiller. Oh, this hurts, I'll go have a nap. Or this hurts, I'll go do this. This is annoying, my shoulder's sore, but I'll just distract myself and I'll go in a video binge or do whatever. We do things to numb and block our pain. But our body gives us pain for a reason. Like Nicole was saying earlier about when her hair started to fall out, it was like her body's like, no, Nicole, like, we're telling you something here, listen to us. Like, your body's sending you a message. What would happen if Nicole didn't listen to her body's messages? Like, I want you guys to stop numbing the pain that you feel. And like Nicole says, listen to your body. Oh, this hurts. Okay, what are you telling me? What do you need? What can I do for you? This pain, how can I love you more? Like, I remember being on a walk, and it's totally off track, but I was on a walk with my friend in the snow, and she was holding a cup of coffee in her hand, and her hand was so cold, but she had gloves in her bag. And I stopped and put my gloves on. I was like, why don't you put your gloves on? She's like, oh, it's annoying, it's fine. I'm like, so you're choosing to be in pain right now? You're choosing discomfort. Why would you do that? And then she was like, oh yeah, something so simple, might seem so trivial, but why would you choose pain for yourself? Why would you choose to pop a painkiller when you might just need to go to the chiropractor and get your back fixed? Like, fix it at the root, course correct. If you're choosing pain for you, like, you've got this one life. If you're going to love anybody, love yourself first. Like, you've got to look after you. Like, when you're in an airplane, hopefully this happens to nobody, but if you're in an airplane and the airplane is crashing or shit's going down, you have to put your mask on before you put somebody else's on. You have to look after you first. Like, Nicole is so beautifully in touch with her body and has a beautiful way of describing these words, but she listened to her body, and we want you guys to do the same. And I know on the topic of our bodies, Nicole does have a bit of homework for you. And when it comes to like Nicole's story, I know she said she didn't have this lump that we're typically looking for, but you really still got to look and pay attention and listen. But I'll pass it back to Nicole to tell you what her homework is for you lot. And I'll
Yes,
stop
so
rambling.
I think it's so important that we check ourselves, but not only women but men. So one thing I'll use a hashtag is boobs and moobs. And it's so important to realize that men can also have breast cancer too. And yeah, if we know our boob or our moob, whenever we are checking if something is different and doesn't feel right, then you can say, oh, that doesn't feel right. And it's not just about finding lumps, like maybe there's like a firmness in the tissue, maybe there's discharge from the nipple, maybe there's redness, or for me, like I had that orange peel effect, but it didn't come until after my biopsies. And that was obviously the fact that the cancer had been opened and was growing. So yeah, being able to understand and know the changes that can occur within the tissue will make a huge difference in finding out whether or not it's a diagnosis. And some women have lumpy boobs, and it's understanding and knowing those lumps so that you can actually say, oh, this lump is different, this lump doesn't feel like it did before. And once you know those changes, and it's not a scary thing. It's really not. Like, understanding our bodies is not a scary thing. You're not checking to see if you have a lump. You're checking because you need to understand your body and what's going on in it. And if you understand that, it's so much easier to communicate that to the doctors. So check your moobs, check your boobs. And yet, some people say to do it weekly, some people say to do it monthly, but just make sure you're checking them. And don't just check them standing up. But if you lie down, it changes the position of the tissue. So check them both standing up and lying down too.
I never thought of that. So that's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that info, and I'll find some info on stuff for you guys on how to check, where to do it, especially for males. I'll see if I can find any info out there, and I'll link it in the info below, because it is so important. And like Nicole said, it's not necessarily a lump you're looking for. With her, it wasn't the case, but I feel like to get familiar with that part of your body, like,
yeah,
how do you even know what's different if you don't know what it is now? Like, you've got to know it. And I'm sure for anybody who's made it this far in this episode, I know it's a lengthy one, but
sorry.
In fairness, you may have listened to it and then you're like, oh shit, is that the time? Because I feel like when you listen to Nicole talk and her story and her mindset, you just want to keep hearing more. It's like, it's just, you need to have more episodes with this one. I want to binge more of like Nicole's mindset. So
just have a whole section with me.
For those people that are keen to hear more from you, to look at more of your journey, to follow your story, where can they find you? How can they connect with you on social media? What's your info?
So the easiest way is probably through my Instagram. Then you don't have to add me as a friend on Facebook. So yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. It is a public profile. I'll get Amy to share that in the details. And I do have a couple of like videos about my hair and my journey on TikTok. And who knows, maybe that platform will provide more videos too. Again, I'll pass that information on to Amy and she can pop it on there as well. Yeah, and that's just really it.
Well, I'm sure the majority, anybody who's made it this far in the episode is going to want to creep. Okay, we all admit it. We all like a good old creep on people, and we do. And like I say, for anybody who's been listening to this on the sound version, if you hop on over to YouTube, you get to see so much more of her personality, her mannerisms, everything. Like, there's multiple reasons, not just for Nicole's story is not just the only reason I wanted her on here, but like her mindset, who she is as a person, her outlook and everything. Like, Nicole's always had this type of personality from when I met her too. So like I was shocked and surprised when I first heard about what she was going through, but I wasn't surprised when I heard about how she was dealing with it and how she was putting it out in the world. I'm like, yeah, that's Nicole. That's the girl I know. And she's not let this thing that's happened to her change her at the core. Like she said, the power of those words, the power of that mindset. If you're going to take anything away from this episode, please let it be that. You don't need to identify with these things. And, especially when she talked about her hair journey and the mastectomy, like, these are just parts of you. Like, they're not who you are. Like, all that matters is what's in here and what you believe in the core. And like, that's the biggest thing that I've taken from Nicole's journey. And I really would love for you guys to connect, check in with us, let us know how you did the homework, what's been different, and what takeaways you've had from this episode. And I know Nicole and I, as we mentioned, we could probably do a bunch of different episodes about stuff that came up here. But if you want her back, if there's anything else you'd love to hear about her more, let us know. Reach out to her, reach out to me. You know, Nicole's definitely not done sharing her story. She's out here to inspire multiple people, and you know, her journey is started a whole new leaf, as she said, with now, you know, had everything, things are past tense.
And just before we do go, I just want to say that while I've had my chemotherapy and my surgery, like my road to recovery is still massive. I still have to have radiotherapy, which I'll be having once my wound is fully healed, and I'm also on targeted hormone therapy until January of next year. So this is not like the end of my story.
Yeah.
In terms of the cancer journey, this is me maybe like a third, halfway through.
It's another chapter.
I still have so much more to go, and I still have so much more to give as well. And yeah, just listen to you, listen to your bodies, and just focus on your mind and your mindset, and trust me, you'll go so much further than you ever thought you could.
Damn right. Words of wisdom. I can't believe this is her first podcast, people. She's never been on a podcast before. This will be the first of many, just as a heads up. Now people know that you're up for these. You'll be hearing from people left, right, and center. And yeah, please listen to everything she says. Like, her mind, there's a reason I've got her on here. And as I say, you keep rambling, but certainly I'll have all her information below here. So if you guys want to follow on with her journey, her continuous journey to get more of her mindset and how she thinks, feel free to give her a little creep, okay?
I don't mind, it's totally okay. I give my permission, I consent.
Well, thanks, Nicole, thanks. But yeah, reach out, and we'd love to hear what your takeaways from this episode were. And like I said, I'll reach out in the stories or whatever to ask for you guys' feedback as for what you took away. I know this week was a bit heavy and long, but it's definitely a message worth sharing, and I know you guys will take a lot from it. So I guess until next week, when we're back with who knows who else. There's so many podcasts I've got putting out there, but Nicole, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and
thank you.
Keep changing the world with your message.
I will. Thank you so much.
See you next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. It would truly mean the world to me if you could subscribe and leave a review on whatever streaming platform you listen to this on. Leave a written review, a 5-star review. It truly helps to get this into the ears of those who really need to hear it. If you're not already a member of the Rewrite Your Story community, you can find us at rewriteyourstory.ca on Facebook, Instagram, and our website. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week. Bye.